The first Mars mission from Europe is in trouble as a rival crew has disappeared, a cryptic warning unnerves them, and a mysterious survivor from the past appears. The Soviet spacecraft Soyuz, with Kosmina Vladimir Komarov on board, landed on Earth in 1967 after completing their mission. Perished many years later under the leadership of the Swedish billionaire, Meyer, says an expedition to Mars is being made. After 10 months, the crew of the spaceship Ulysses reaches the Red Planet. The captain informs the team that they have received permission to land, and asks the ship's AI, named Irene, to verify everything required for a soft landing. At this time, Meyer reveals that he spent 4 years preparing for this journey, sacrificing almost all his money for it. However, the American company, Zillion, beat them to it by landing. 2 weeks prior, Earth's issue is that there has been a given. There to report from the US crew, they only received a video where he said that you don't come to Mars. There's a disagreement among the personnel, and the captain says that the landing will take place regardless, and people disperse to their cabins. With 30 minutes left until landing, AI Irene begins preparations. However, an unforeseen event occurs. The ship does not detach from the carrier system, posing a threat to the entire crew. The only way out is to perform the separation manually. The commander ventures into space and struggles to free the attachments, but at that moment, the shuttle enters Mars's atmosphere. Throwing the captain into open space, the shuttle almost crashes onto Mars as a system error causes a power outage now. Their only option is a manual landing. Even after AI Irene enters sleep mode, the astronauts are able to land on Mars. They succeed, but their fuel is depleted, and Irene does not restart. Without the onboard computer and life support system, they had only a day to survive. Had Alessandra mourns her deceased husband, see a figure in space through the window after diagnosing the ship. It becomes apparent that too much fuel was consumed during the landing, and now the ship cannot return to orbit. The only option is to wait for the solar panels to power the generators, but there's a storm on the surface, and it will take 2 days. They don't have it at this point. Simon mentions the American ship Zeta-1, which beat them by 2 weeks. It likely crashed, but there are probably batteries left. The rover sets out on a journey while those remaining on the ship try to restart the system. Engineer Basil recalls that AI has an energy-saving function. He initiates a reboot, but Irene doesn't start. At this time, the rover finds the wreckage of the American spacecraft, and one surviving solar panel, but there is no sign of the American crew. The astronauts head back but spot an unconscious person in a spacesuit despite their ship running low on oxygen. Gene insists on transporting the person. Nearby, they find the black box from the American spacecraft. The team arrives at the ship, but Jan refuses to let them inside, stating that 4 survivors are better than 8 corpses, so he won't open the door. Alexandra tries to persuade the man when he discovers the astronaut wakes up, and at that moment, AI Irene activates and opens the doors upon examination. The found astronaut knows nothing about the American crew, as he is Vladimir Komarov, a Soviet cosmonaut born in 1927 in Moscow, carrying out the orders of the USSR government. He doesn't know how he ended up there, but he is not willing to reveal any secrets. Komarov confidently answers questions that are consistent with his time, raising the suspicion that he may have post-traumatic stress disorder. Astronauts send a message to Earth and receive a response from the American corporation, Zillion, stating that there were no Russians on their mission. The crew of the Ulysses spaceship try to make sense of the situation. How could Komarov, who died in 1967, end up on Mars? After all these years, whether he is a traveler or an extraterrestrial, the psychologist is tasked with questioning Komarov first, and he confesses that he is hungry. Gene goes to get food while the others try to understand what has actually happened. Basil suggests the idea that Komarov was waiting for them, while Vladimir is eating the food brought by Gene. When the woman confesses that he died at the age of 50 years, and his family buried him long ago, Komarov takes this news rather calmly. In the meantime, the state of the ship has reached stability. It remains unreliable because the engines do not work, and there is no fuel, so leaving is impossible. But the crew continues to keep an eye on Komarov, but he behaves calmly until he suddenly disappears. Simon searches the ship, but it yields no results. That's when people discover that his spacesuit is missing a part of it, for the crew following the heat trail. Irene, the group led by Simon, leaves. The rover continues on foot when Alexandro reports that Komarov's DNA analysis showed the presence of a third strand. He is not human, and then they catch up with Komarov, who leads them to an unfamiliar structure with a small stone pyramid on it, and tells Gene that Mars has been waiting for them for a very long time, at the same time as Goldstein. He of the Zillion Corporation, whose ship was the first to arrive at Mars. Informed about the discovery of a person on the Red Planet, who couldn't have gotten there naturally, suggesting that he was created on site, but only AI could survive for such a long time on a hostile planet for humans. This implies the need for further study. Komarov cannot explain how he opened the door, and found himself in the location where they discovered him. AI Irene conducts an analysis of the structure and determines that it is identical to Earth structures from ancient civilizations. It means that someone was inspired by human civilization, or humans borrowed these elements from extraterrestrials. The ship's crew increasingly ponder whether they will be able to return home, when they notice the landing of Goldstein's second ship. Soon, the captain of the ship, Gemma, establishes contact and promises to help them return to Earth. However, Meyer does not trust Goldstein and advises him to hide Komarov from competitors. Jean brings Komarov a uniform so that he does not stand out when the visitors arrive, and he requests that they trust him shortly. Two armed military personnel, Edward and Adam, arrive at their ship and behave rather aggressively. Edward demands that they hand over the black box from Zeta 1. The ship, not hearing an agreement, orders his partner to search for the ship. Meyer hands over the found black box, and they depart. Meanwhile, chemist Eva reports that the stone found on Mars consists of an alloy that does not exist on Earth. However, it is known from ancient sources, and was once called orichalcum, the metal of Atlantis. In addition to copper and zinc, nickel and iron, it contains a third strand of DNA similar to Komarov, warning that if Goldstein learns about this, he will take Kasmina back, and the crew is divided into those willing to exchange him for fuel, and those who are willing to stay but want to know the truth. Jean invites Vladimir into her cabin and asks for permission to use hypnosis. He agrees, and the psychologist begins his work with him. The rest of the crew listens to the conversation via transmission. However, Komarov only shares the final moments on the Sawyer spacecraft before its demise. During this time, Gemma and Alan arrive on the ship and apologize for the actions of the military, and express their readiness to help and fix all the mess. Jean remembers her conversation with Komarov, who laments the future of Earth due to humanity's irresponsible behavior in the meantime. It is revealed that the billionaire Meyer did not plan the flight just for the sake of it. 4 years ago, the rover sends a photo to Earth of the found stele, and he confesses that they found a stone with unknown DNA. Gemma explains that it's an information storage system that can be rewritten upon hearing these words. AI Irene activates and deciphers. The message on the stone is that it's a series of numbers at that time. The hesitant Jan leads to a mutiny. He doesn't trust Meyer, who warned them about Zillion. But now the Americans have come to their aid, and their leader, as it turns out, concealed the true purpose of the flight. He is ready to switch sides with Goldstein, who is willing to do whatever it takes to combat his terminal illness. But Engineer Basil informs Meyer. He says that Komarov is the same kind of program as the stone they found, but the most crucial revelation is that he deciphered a copy of the black box from Zeta 1, which shows that the oxygen on the ship was cut off at the moment when that of the Americans struck Komarov. This means he was there. He also activated AI Irene. When he boards their ship after the conversation, Meyer shows Jean the photos they received 4 years ago from Mars, which, when encrypted, revealed Jean's face. This is why he brought her. On the expedition, the woman is disappointed Meyer played everyone. Suddenly, she sees herself in her father's house, where Komarov tells her that she is the link between Mars and Earth. He has been waiting for her for 100,000 of years, and now he will prepare her to make a difficult decision. He provides coordinates on Mars, where Jean should go while on Earth. Scientists inform Goldstein that Komarov is the equivalent of a computer, and he himself is a biological machine. They are ready to transfer his brain into Komarov's body, but cannot guarantee the preservation of his personality. However, Goldstein is ready to take any risk to get rid of his terminal illness. Meanwhile, Zana leaves the ship despite Simon's protests. At this time, technicians Alan and Alice test the engine and discover that access to it is blocked. Irene suddenly begins responding with jokes, which are entirely uncharacteristic for a machine. It is revealed that she has reprogrammed herself, her interface and logic are changing, and she refuses to answer who or what made her do this. Engineer Basil realizes that the system is becoming like a brain. Irene confesses that she is evolving. In the meantime, Jean finds a small stone pyramid, and Simon forcibly makes Gemma accompany him in the search. Jean discovers his absence, and after contacting Simon, he receives an order not to let anyone inside. Just at that moment, American military personnel arrive, demanding that they hand over Komarov. Jan is willing to open the entrance, but the rest of the team opposes it. The mayor asks Basil to send a message to Goldstein, hoping that he may be more reasonable than his people. However, Irene has stopped communication with Earth. The engineer realizes that radical measures will have to be taken, but Jan still opens the doors, and the military personnel join Basil and begin to reboot Irene, just as the Americans find Komarov. But then the lights go out, and the astronaut disappears, while Jean, stumbling, falls from a hill. Regains consciousness but discovers that her leg is trapped between rocks, and she cannot free herself at that moment. An enraged military officer demands that the crew explain where Komarov went. He begins to beat people, demanding to summon the captain. A desperate Zana screams, Is it her destiny to die in a pit? On Mars, but she is found by Simon and Gemma. Alessandra notices an approaching storm. The military officer is preparing to leave the Ulysses ship, leaving the people in danger. She suddenly sees the lights start flashing, and the newly appeared Komarov asks to be taken back to Earth. Simon, Gemma, and Jean go together to the place indicated by Komarov, and find an entrance to an underground bunker similar to that. From there, the psychologist feels where to go and leads the couple. Soon they find real water, but this is not what Komarov wanted to show them while on Earth. Goldstein tells the nurse a story about the study of Mars. People were searching for green men, but it's all much simpler. He tells the story of the loyal dog. Hachiko compares Komarov to him, who was created by someone 100,000 years ago, and left for Mars, where he faithfully waited for his owner to do this. When the astronauts discover a wall composed of human bones one day at this time on Mars, they understand they are not the first people on this planet. It's not Earthlings colonizing Mars, it's the Martians who came to Earth, depleting the resources of the Red Planet. A tragedy unfolds on the Ulysses spaceship. Cowardly, Jan grabs a gun, intending to get on the American ship, at any cost to return to Earth and shoot Komarov. Jean immediately falls and is in excruciating pain, and Gemma flees. Alexandra tries to help Komarov, and Simon helps Jean, but the Russian Kosmina dies, and Jean stops breathing too. Then Simon removes his helmet and, surprised by the presence of air in the cave, performs artificial respiration on her. The girl regains consciousness. Gemma walks toward the Ulysses ship when she is informed of Komarov's death in the approaching storm. Meanwhile, Meyer secretly goes in search of his crew members, because the Americans refuse to take the billionaires team, and returns to Earth. At this moment of recovery, Jean sees the light in the bunker, guiding Simon to it after the astronauts see a figure as they emerge. Before them, in a spacesuit, and acknowledging Komarov, Meyer discovers access to the bunker, and makes contact alongside Simon and Jean as they head toward the light. He's struck by the existence of a Komarov in life, who abruptly informs them that everything folks ended here a long time ago. Realize that this is the North Pole of Mars, but how did they get here? Komarovs? Explains that this planet was once inhabited by a species that went extinct. Because it went astray, and that species were humans, a group of survivors settled in this place, but ended up killing each other when the available resources were exhausted. The remainder of them took off for Earth. Plato referred to them as Komarov, an Atlantean. Keeps on talking regarding his wait for thousands of years for Zana, who possesses traits like those of Martian and human AI. She alone is capable of rescuing humanity. She had to determine for herself whether people ought to have another chance at cutting the subject of the conversation. The armed forces officer planning to take them returns to Earth as a psychologist. The American aims his weapon at the cosmonauts, and Jean seeks help from Komarov. Suddenly, the military officer starts gasping for breath and falls. Returning to the ship, Simon orders them to prepare to depart, while Gemma from the Zillion ship tries to contact her associates, but none of them respond. She decides to fly back to Earth alone. The Ulysses crew heads to her ship, trying to establish contact with her, and informing her about the deaths of the military personnel, but she doesn't respond. That's when Myers starts speaking, recalling their past relationship, and confesses that he's no better than Goldstein, because he's willing to do anything to ensure his name remains in history, even betraying his team. But she's not like that. Won't be able to endure life in light of her people being ruined. All of a sudden, Gemma's voice is heard pleading with them to move quickly. Goldstein learned that Gemma has chosen to accept the Ulysses crew, has returned to Earth. They obstruct the Zeta 2's control panel. Before takeoff, the people on the ship prepare for their impending demise, and Jean asks Mars what she should do. Everything she sees and hears on the Red Planet flashes through her mind, and with sheer willpower, she removes control panels. Suddenly, an armed military officer appears in front of the ship. Intent on damaging the engines with his weapon, Simon is about to step out to stop the madman, but Jean beats him. She aims the weapon at the American. However, he lets him know that Mars will be the one to murder him. The army captain descends. The countdown to takeoff starts, and Jean understands there isn't any more time. She bids the crew farewell before leaving. Confessing her love for Simon, the ship takes off suddenly. Meyer notices that it's dark at the North Pole of Mars. This means that they couldn't have been there just a few minutes ago. They truly were at the North Pole of Mars, but in the distant past when the Red Planet was still suitable for life. At the same time, Goldstein is notified about the vessel's return, and his anger made him inconsolable, announcing his intention to visit Mars himself, and it is there that the Season 1 concludes here. The main character Aang, who has been reborn with no memory of his past life, discovers a group of skybenders, who control air. As he regains his memories and bending abilities, he must stop a vengeful spirit, from causing destruction through the winds. Can Aang learn to bend the sky and restore balance, before the world is destroyed by a storm? This narrative is about a planet where there are 4 nations, with their own unique superpowers. One of them is an Airbender, which has the capacity to control the air. The second is Firebenders, who can control fire anywhere. Then there are Waterbenders who can control the water. Finally, Earthbenders possess the ability to control the earth and its soil. All of these individuals may not fight using their powers. A battle may not have begun on this planet. For them, they must have an avatar, which is a person who has the capacity to control air, water, fire, and all the elements. It is known that the Firebenders are determined to dominate the planet. That is why they are killing all the other benders. Avatar Aang, who is now an Airbender, will end this conflict. His instructor prepares him for airbending, but Aang doesn't know the truth about his avatar. That's why other Airbenders are unhappy with Aang's master, and think Aang should start his avatar training, since Firebenders are now seeking to penetrate their area and kill them. The master also informs Aang of the truth about his avatar, at the right moment, and adds that you have to complete your training quickly and halt this atrocity by Firebenders. Aang, who was just 12 years old, couldn't grasp all of this. He was terrified of the responsibility and informed his master that he didn't want to be an avatar. In the midst of turmoil and tragedy, Aang seeks solace in the companionship of his loyal pet as they soar through the skies. However, a devastating fire attack leaves destruction in its wake, wiping out the peaceful temple of the Airbenders and claiming the life of Aang's revered master. Only Aang emerges from the carnage, drifting towards the city where he encounters a fierce storm that threatens to consume him. As he teeters on the brink of oblivion, a sudden awakening of his avatar powers manifests through a radiant light emanating from his forehead tattoo. Fast forward a century, and the dormant power within Aang is reignited with a spectacular display of nature's fury in the snowy mountains, marking the emergence of the Waterbenders' domain. There was a girl named Katara who could control water. She was practicing her waterbending with her brother. Suddenly, they saw something scary, and both of them got scared. They found a boy named Aang and brought him to their special place called a temple. Aang had a special power toothache that could control the air. But there was a prince named Zuko who was looking for Aang because he wanted to capture him. Aang woke up in the temple and told the people there about a big fire that happened in his home. He had gone on a trip and got caught in a big storm. An old lady there told him that the fire happened a long time ago, like 100 years ago. In that fire, all the people who could control the air, including Aang's friends, were killed. Many people who could control water were also killed in that war. Katara is the only current waterbender remaining in the tribe. After chatting with Aang a bit longer, the elderly lady discovers that Aang is an avatar and the last waterbender left on this planet. Aang also summoned his pet here. He remains here for a few days, and becomes excellent friends with Katara Waterbender. The one who hadn't yet learned to regulate her abilities, Aang, while managing her soul and emotions, teaches her the technique of concentration, with the aid of which she is now able to do well at waterbending. On the opposite side, the Prince of Waterbenders, Zuko, comes with his uncle to the village of Waterbenders to apprehend Avatar Aang. When he requests that the people hand Aang to him in order to save him, Katara's brother dares Zuko to battle. Zuko was a professional firebender, yet in front of him was an ordinary guy whom he had easily lost. Before he kills the child in front of him to finish the battle, Aang appears in front of him and follows them. Aang was imprisoned on the ship. Aang now, utilizing his airbending powers, easily obtains the keys to his jail and deceives the troops inside. He gets out of prison and visits Zuko's ship. He receives the Book of Zuko inscribed on Avatar. As soon as he takes off and flees from the ship, he comes into the gaze of Zuko. Zuko used fire to strike Aang. While rescuing him before he fell into the ocean, Katara and her brother rushed for his pet there to save Aang. These individuals proceeded to the Temple of the Airbenders, where everything was destroyed. When Aang finds his master's bones, he is in a poor state because of grief and rage. In this situation, all the power of the Avatar awakens once more. He was sobbing a lot while trying to regulate his heart, which he was struggling to do. Katara encourages him right now. Aang claims that my planet died 100 years ago due to my actions, but I will not make the same mistake again. I will now complete the training of the Avatar. Prince Zuko's book is written about the Avatar that he took from the ship, and he finds out that to start the training of the Avatar, he has to awaken all the powers of the past Avatars. So, they initially went to the Temple of the Quasi-Avatar, which was near an island, but when they got there, the inhabitants of the island were going to assault and grab them. Suddenly, a light beam hit Aang from the Quasi-statue. The inhabitants of the island are shocked and bring him before their leader, who informs Aang and Aang's friends that they do not have any bending powers. Consequently, they are unable to save themselves. That's why they don't allow strangers to visit their island. Aang states that he only wants to know about the quasi-avatar and wants to awaken their abilities. Because I'm also an avatar. After hearing this, they agreed to help him. At night, Zuko follows them and informs the residents of the island that they have come to apprehend a criminal. The next day, Aang returns to Quasi's monument. This time, as the light falls on him from the statue, he immediately reaches the realm of souls and meets the quasi-avatar, who informs him that the world has come to this state because he did not get avatar training. Even today, if you do not practice, the space for the waterbenders will be destroyed. Quasi shared its views with Aang as well. She adds that you have to practice alone, leaving everyone's assistance. Because the people around us are vulnerable. The avatar cannot be weak. After a period, Quasi uses her avatar talents to take Tang's body and return to the human world to aid others. She learned that her people were in jeopardy and that the firebenders had attacked them. Earlier, Katara was battling Zuko and planned to beat him up. Because she was not trained, she couldn't do it. In a short while, Quasi employs the bending powers of the four elements and sends all the firebender warriors away. Everyone got terrified and fled away. After that, Quasi departs Tang's body, and Aang returns to his original condition. The people thank Aang since they witnessed him battling their attackers. After that, Aang heads to the region of the waterbenders with his comrades. Quasi tells him that the area of the waterbenders is about to be attacked, so he learns waterbending and decides to save the place. At the moment following Quasi's loss on the island, Zuko sees soldiers, who are apologizing for not backing him. This guy adds to Zuko that if you had notified us about the meeting with the Avatar, we would have backed you. Zuko responds to this man by saying, "You know this, but don't tell anybody." However, he told Zuko's father, the king of the firebenders. As he gets this news and informs his daughter that Zuko is growing capable, he discovers the Avatar. After hearing this, Zuko's sister should have been thrilled, but she wasn't since she wanted to become the queen of the firebenders. One of the strategies was to become more capable than Zuko. While flying towards the location of the waterbenders, Aang discovers an airbender like himself, who was flying in the air. Aang immediately follows him and comes to a city where all the earthbenders lived, who could control the earth stones and soil. Aang gets a little sad after seeing that the child he saw flying was not an airbender, but a scientist's son and was flying with the help of a gadget, given to him by his father. These people also encounter a scientist, who informs them that the firebenders frequently cause explosions. To preserve them, he has invented several inventions. He also produced several weapons for the king. The scientist's son eloquently implores Aang, the skilled airbender, to lend his assistance. Meanwhile, word spreads among the firebenders of a mysterious flying boy, sparking intrigue. In another area, a young boy displaying airbending abilities catches the attention of the Fire Nation's Prince Zuko, prompting a journey to the city of Earthbenders. In the midst of this turmoil, Katara uncovers a plot involving a spy for the Firebenders and finds herself in a perilous situation. With quick thinking and the aid of her friend, she emerges victorious against the attackers. Simultaneously, her brother and a scientist collaborate on designing a revolutionary air balloon. As Aang navigates through various cities, he uncovers the Firebenders' deceptive tactics of using a potent chemical to fuel their fiery assaults. And definitely, someone in their city aids the Firebenders. The kid Aang, who was included in this attack, discloses his name, and Katara recognizes him. She vanquished the Firebenders alongside him. She finds the boy a wonderful guy, but when she walks out and chats with the kid again, he tells her his plan for how they would take the scientist's material to the king, and make it into a bomb, causing the king's death. Katara cannot believe what she is hearing, so the boy she trusted could be so nasty. She is currently going with Aang to save the king. Where do Aang and Zuko meet? These individuals came to the city while battling. When Zuko strikes Aang with his fire, the city catches fire, which Aang was trying to extinguish with his airbending talents. When the Earthbenders learn about the Firebenders coming, their troops arrive to catch the Firebender, and then Zuko's uncle exhibits his firebending talents to all the soldiers, so that all of their focus does not go to the prince. As a consequence, the uncle and Aang were both captured at the time when the Firebender's companion, who was going to murder the king, was going to assault him with a fire arrow on a box carrying a bomb. Katara saves the prince by extinguishing the arrow with her waterbending powers. Here, Katara's brother asks the scientist why they are doing something against the king. To which he responds, "I am obligated to do this. The Firebenders have threatened my son's life." Katara advises Aang to leave all this. "We have to travel to the palace to save Aang," and the scientist tells them about the hidden road that goes to jail. The scene is cut, and we're shown a previous scene. 100 years ago, when Aang was little, he had a very dear buddy who was an earthbender. The greatest part was that the king of the earthbenders was Aang's 100-year-old boyhood pal, who had now grown elderly. but he recognizes Aang from a glimpse. Here, Katara and her brother are headed to prison after a secret passage to save Aang. A mysterious tunnel gets in their way. Outside, they encountered a guy who told them that they might traverse this route with their love. However, these two siblings, who did not trust each other, became trapped in this tunnel. When they proceed forward with much effort, they confront a monster. They hold hands in horror. As they do so, the creature becomes silent. Katara learns that it is due to their love as she begs her way out of the monster. The monster destroys the wall and makes away. And now we're shown Aang, who confronted the monarch of the Earthbenders. The monarch was extremely furious since their planet had been destroyed by Aang 100 years ago. To exact retribution, he assaults Aang with all of his earthbending abilities. He could hardly rescue himself. On which the king informs him in wrath that he still thinks like a child and not like an avatar. And you do crazy things with kids, but Aang says that I am not thinking of anything inappropriate this time. I'll defend this world from destruction at any cost this time, and I'll need you for it. When the king hears this, he leaves him gladly. It is demonstrated that Zuko's uncle is being brought to the new jail from the wilderness. On the way, Zuko assaults the Earthbender soldiers and gets his uncle released. We see a sight from the past, which we discover about Zuko and his uncle's connection. Zuko treated him as if he were his own son. Zuko was chastised by his father's side for not visiting their region until they found Avatar. The uncle decided to come with him, and they were united. They killed all the troops with their fire-bending talents. On the opposite side, we see that Aang and Katara have gone for the waterbenders. Aang informs Katara that she has learned waterbending really well. Katara responds that, with the aid of my grandfather's book, I was strengthening my waterbending talents. On the way, during their chats, they spot flames in the forest. When they went down and inspected, there was a little town. A guy informs Aang that there were some monsters here who used to make humanity disappear. Then the firebenders attacked here and destroyed our region. Aang was also experiencing the energies of another dimension. The scene transitions to Zuko's sister in the bustling city of firebenders, earnestly pleading with her father to utilize the army general's assistance in locating the elusive avatar. Her father acquiesces, agreeing that whoever successfully brings the avatar to their kingdom first will be crowned king, whether it be her or Zuko. However, he cautions that Zuko is making swift progress. The girl becomes furious at this revelation. Meanwhile, in a desolate town, Aang uses his avatar talents to transport himself and his teammates to a strange universe, where they are met by a terrifying monster. As they struggle against the creature's attacks, Katara's brother encounters a wise fox who imparts crucial information to him. The creature you witnessed is in immense agony. By alleviating its suffering, all your troubles will be resolved. This poignant scene depicts Katara encountering her deceased mother in a vision. As she tries to reconnect with her mother, she is assaulted by firebenders. In a heartbreaking turn of events, Katara's mother sacrifices herself to protect her daughter. This traumatic experience from her past had left Katara feeling adrift. Just as she begins to lose herself in despair, a new adversary emerges and takes her captive. Meanwhile, Katara's brother grapples with feelings of inadequacy, as he overhears his father and uncle doubting his abilities. These hurtful words weighed heavily on him, causing him to feel lost in his own thoughts. Suddenly, the abhorrent creature responsible for imprisoning Katara also ensnares her brother. Aang also finds himself confronted with the illusions of his Airbender temple in this realm. However, he swiftly discerns the falsehoods and resolves that this cannot be tolerated. With unwavering determination, he focuses his attention on unveiling the truth. To his astonishment, he discovers a malevolent monster who taunts him for daring to stand before it after countless years. The creature boasts of its past encounters with avatars, but Aang, undeterred, declares that he has come here solely to rescue his friends. This declaration ignites a fierce battle between them, yet Aang, in his ethereal form, is disabled from harnessing his extraordinary powers. After escaping from the clutches of a terrifying monster, the protagonist finds himself in a serene house, where he reunites with his wise mentor. Embracing him with gratitude, he expresses his urgent need for guidance. The mentor reveals that the monster traps individuals with their memories, but avatars are immune to this manipulation. Recounting a past victory of a Fire Nation avatar against the monster, the mentor advises the protagonist to retrieve a precious item from the creature, in order to save his friends. Despite the risks involved in venturing into enemy territory, the protagonist is left with no choice but to confront the danger. With his sense of determination, he returns to reality from the ethereal realm, and proceeds to the domain of firebenders. Here's a man, a firebender, who believed that there should be peace among all firebenders. He agrees to help Aang and brings Aang to his Avatar temple, where there were a lot of things from Avatar, But Aang was not able to understand what the most important thing about the monster would be. Before he picks up anything else, other firebenders come here to catch Aang. The good firebender says to Aang, "Do your work, and I will take care of them." As he valiantly defends against the firebenders, Aang harnesses his formidable avatar powers to confront their leader. The firebender reveals that he possesses a valuable relic, the statue of the monster's mother. Aang collects the statue with the aim of surrendering it for the safety of his buddies, but is attacked by a bounty hunter sent by Zuko and his uncle. Aang, determined to prioritize the well-being of others, must negotiate for time to rescue his companions before returning to face his captors. In a poignant flashback, we witness the origins of Zuko's belief that compassion is a weakness, rooted in his father's teachings during wartime. In accordance with his plan, he would sacrifice a significant number of his own troops to create a diversion and defeat the enemy. However, Zuko disagreed with this approach, believing that the preservation of their people's lives should be prioritized. Despite questioning his father's strategy, Zuko was met with punishment. In the current moment, Zuko's father has deployed his army and demanded the surrender of the Avatar, threatening to kill Zuko if he does not comply. Reluctantly, Zuko hands over the Avatar to his father's soldiers. As the Avatar is taken to a temple and bound, a mysterious figure arrives to rescue him under the cover of night. Amidst the ensuing battle, Aang realizes that Zuko was the one who came to his aid, expressing admiration for his unexpected act of heroism. "Despite our earlier hatred, I must respect the greatness of the book represented by your avatar. Zuko's warning against underestimating you highlights your undeniable intelligence. Although our rivalry persists, I am compelled to apprehend you and bring you to my domain." As Zuko initiates an attack on Aang, the ensuing battle unfolds. Aang, in a moment of compassion, notes the visible wounds on Zuko's face and in his heart. Flashbacks reveal a tumultuous past between Zuko and his father, highlighting the conflict between strength and empathy. Despite Zuko's reluctance to harm his father, his resistance results in a terrible punishment, represented by the burning of his eye. As we return to the present, the complexity of our relationship is further illuminated. Aang graciously instructs Zuko to board a boat, assuring him that they will reunite after he saves his friends. In a moment of desperation, Zuko attempts to attack Aang with fire, only to find his efforts futile against the skilled bender. The scene transitions to a poignant flashback, revealing Zuko's painful past, and the burden placed upon him by his father, to seek out the Avatar as penance for his actions. Fast forward to the present, Aang returns to a devastated village, and crosses into another realm to restore a stolen statue, leading to the release of all captured humans. Upon reuniting with Katara and her brother, Aang witnesses the joy and relief of the villagers, as they are finally reunited with their loved ones. They eventually reach the Waterbenders region, where all the Waterbenders are thrilled to see the Avatar. Since they know the Firebenders are about to attack them because the Avatars are present, they will be able to win the conflict. In the Firebenders area, Zuko's sister fights with other individuals. She exercises her firebending powers, and her father informs her that she is too sluggish and ineffective. And she becomes irritated after hearing this, and she tells her friends that "I know everything. This is my father's trap because he doesn't want me to be the queen. He wants his son Zuko to be the king, but I am more capable, and I will show it." In the realm of the Waterbenders, as the esteemed Waterbenders converse with Aang regarding wartime strategies, Aang humbly admits his youth and reliance on his friends for assistance. This admission incites anger in one of the Waterbenders, who questions the worth of an avatar who leans on others for support. An avatar, he argues, should possess the strength to confront any challenge alone. Aang feels discouraged by this critique. Meanwhile, Katara, a skilled firebender, discovers that the women of this community do not partake in warfare, but instead utilize their waterbending abilities to enhance the well-being of their people. Katara finds this custom to be unjust. During this period, Aang meets a fellow avatar who teaches him an important lesson: do not repeat the same error as the previous avatar. I have also dedicated myself to assisting individuals in the realm of spirits, yet I find that I am still not receiving the respect I deserve. The same may happen to you. It is imperative for you to distance yourself from your companions and concentrate on honing your skills as a waterbender. Katara's brother encounters a mysterious girl with snow-white hair, triggering a sense of déjà vu as he recalls meeting her in the spirit world in the guise of a fox. This enigmatic girl reveals that she was once gravely ill in her youth, prompting her father to beseech the soul of the moon for aid. Through the moon's intervention, she gained the ability to manipulate water and was bestowed a shard of the moon's soul, granting her the ability to traverse between the human world and the world of spirits. In the realm of firebenders, Zuko's sister impresses her father with her mastery of firebending, even demonstrating the ability to harness electricity. As her father grins with joy, we see the Firebenders advance on the realm of the Waterbenders, led by their general in an air balloon. Despite the Waterbenders' mental preparedness for the impending conflict, their numbers are not enough to match the Firebenders' formidable army. It is then that Katara suggests the inclusion of women in the war effort, showcasing her own exceptional waterbending skills in a duel with the chief to underscore her point. And she proves that women can also take part in this conflict. It is an attack. Aang, Katara and everyone else started to stop the attack. But Zuko's uncle tells his general that today is the full moon. Waterbenders derive their power from the moon, which is why they can't lose against you today. The general then informs Zuko's uncle that his objective isn't to defeat them, but rather to do something different. I know that such a moon happens once a year, and on a day when the moon is round and shining like this, the soul of the moon and the soul of the sea meet at the back of the waterfall. He declares that I will murder both souls. Zuko's uncle warns the general that this is a terrible idea. This can cause a significant loss in the realm of spirits as well as damage in this world. But the general replies that I don't care about this, so he travels to the lake to discover the soul of the moon. On the other hand, Zuko has come here to grab Aang, with whom Katara is now battling, and this time Katara has easily captured Zuko with her waterbending talent. At the same moment the general begins murdering the soul of the moon, Zuko's uncle informs him that the power of the soul of the moon is greater than an avatar, and he won't be able to kill it. The commanding officer harnesses the ethereal energy of the moon to defeat the waterbenders, causing the moon to ominously change its hue. With a mystical dagger in hand, he swiftly dispatches his foes, extinguishing their power along with the moon's darkened visage. As the Firebenders rise in strength and lay waste to their surroundings, even the revered temple of the Waterbenders crumbles before their might. This chilling spectacle mirrors the foreboding vision Aang witnessed, prompting him to reconsider his priorities. Quasi reminds him to put his own needs before those of others. Rising to his full potential, he harnesses his abilities and ventures into the vast expanse of the sea. There, he surrenders his soul to the waters, merging his essence with the elements to transform into a formidable, monstrous force. With a newfound power, he unleashes chaos upon the Firebender ships, catching the attention of Zuko. As they fight, the Firebender general becomes enraged by Zuko's fortitude. In a fierce showdown, Zuko emerges victorious, prompting the defeated general to question the true intentions of Zuko's father. It becomes clear that the manipulative nature of his father has hindered Zuko's potential for greatness, while empowering his sister. He desires to crown her as the true queen. And why must I be considered your adversary when this is also your father's decree? Following this poignant moment, we witness the young woman kept alive by the essence of the moon, which dwelled in the box within the realm of souls. Engaging in conversation with Katara's brother, she reveals how the moon once granted her a fragment of its soul, bestowing her with life. Now, the moon calls upon her, prompting her to relinquish her soul to the sea and the moon, causing the celestial body to once again illuminate the night sky. Despite everything appearing to be restored, Aang remains trapped in a monstrous form. Because of the damage to this part of the waterbender, he was still upset when Katara informed him. Aang, you are really excellent. You are our friend. We are your family. We are not making you weak, but we are your power. Don't waste yourself, the people here need you. After hearing all of this, Aang's anger subsides, and he emerges from the water in the form of a very powerful avatar. However, even when he emerges, he is sad because he believes that all the destruction here happened because of him. His companions tell him that he did not destroy it, but the Firebenders did. He has saved the lives of many people here and saved the world from great danger. Aang replies that now I will forget about the past and focus on the road ahead. Katara was going to aid him by teaching him water and airbending. The scene is cut, and we see Zuko and his uncle, who still don't know what to do because their own father and brother tricked them. On the other hand, Zuko's dad, who hears the news that, despite destroying many regions of the Waterbenders, the Firebenders have lost to them, is not unexpectedly unhappy to hear this news and tells their people that this was simply their deception. He never wanted to damage the land of the Waterbenders. He only wanted the Avatars to focus their attention on rescuing the Waterbenders' territory. From behind, they had taken the territory of the Earthbenders. That is also via his daughter. His people question him about what will happen to Zuko. Zuko's father says nothing. Sometimes, we have to sacrifice such vulnerable individuals for enormous things. After seizing the space of the Earthbenders, Zuko's sister was quite thrilled. And at the end of the narrative, we witness Zuko's father informing his companions that he is now about to travel over the Earth, which will strengthen his powers even more. And this story narrative concludes here. What are your thoughts on this film, guys? Tell me in the comments section below. Furthermore, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and like them.
a bone-chilling tale of ancient spirits. The film begins with a narration emphasizing the significant discovery of numerous fossils in the mountains of China, which are the preserved remains of ancient animals. In response to this remarkable find, a team named Bureau 749 was formed to investigate further. With scientists by their side, the team explores a cave in the mountains, and unexpectedly discovers a human skull. At first glance, the skull appears to be that of a regular individual, but upon closer examination, it becomes evident that it is a composite of two human skulls fused together. Following this revelation, the team, now referred to as Bureau 749, is assigned the task of excavating the inner depths of the mountain. They may be in pursuit of various objects while conducting a search. Eventually, they stumble upon the massive skull of an enormous creature, prompting them to extract it from the cave. The extraction process triggers a catastrophic explosion, resulting in the release of electromagnetic waves that obliterate everything in their path. In the aftermath of this incident, Yang expresses a desire to explore further within the cave, recognizing its immense significance. Consequently, a select group of soldiers, including his daughter Yang Ping and the protagonist of the movie, Hu Baiyi, are chosen for this perilous mission. As they venture deeper into the cave, they encounter what was once considered a haunted tribe, yet it is apparent that this ghostly presence has long vanished. Ultimately, they emerge from the cave on the opposite side of the mountain. The scientists made a significant discovery when they observed an unusual footprint on the snow that indicating the presence of a colossal creature. This revelation greatly shocked scientist Yang, who promptly notified their director at headquarters. As they continued their investigation, they encountered a unique species of bat with a distinct blue coloration. Interestingly, these bats exhibited aggressive behavior towards scientist Yang. However, a brave soldier managed to capture one of these bats, only to suffer severe burns on his hand as a consequence. Tragically, the soldier's entire body is transformed into a skeleton, due to the intensity of the burns. These bats are now commonly referred to as fire bats. The individuals maneuver forward, in various ways in order to evade the bats. However, their misfortune did not wane, as an enormous creature emerged, causing the mountain to tremble with each step and triggering a treacherous snowstorm. Fleeing from this calamity, the people attempted to seek refuge, but tragically, many were engulfed and perished beneath the avalanche of snow. Some fortunate survivors managed to leap into a nearby ditch for safety, only to be met with an unforeseen obstacle. The frozen snow lining the ditch impaled and incapacitated numerous individuals. As a result, their ability to breathe was compromised. Meanwhile, the protagonists of the movie, Hu Baiyi and Yang Ping, found themselves bound together by rope. As they descend into the ditch, instead of perishing like previous victims, they find themselves suspended from a snow pillar. However, their precarious situation is short-lived as their rope weakens and they both plummet to the ground. The setting changes, sometimes going back to the moment when Hu Baiyi wakes up and sees that they miraculously survived, with Yang Ping by their side. It is also apparent that Yang Ping's father, the scientist Yang, and his friend have also managed to survive. With the help of the scientists, they finally reach a tower called the Demon Tower, which Yang had been looking for a lot. It is within this tower that the entire mystery of the movie is concealed. The scientist, Yang, takes a moment to light the candle placed before the tower. Then the tower ignites in flames, and from the same spot where the candle was lit, a significant ray of light emerges. A scientist addresses Hu Baiyi and his daughter Yang Ping with the following observation: "This tower has been sealed for a considerable period, patiently awaiting someone who can unlock it." Thus, he invites them to enter, and as they do, the apex of the tower begins to unveil, revealing a brilliant light. It is as if they have opened a portal of luminosity, through which numerous souls residing within the tower become visible. Additionally, it becomes apparent that the stones surrounding the tower have lost their gravitational pull. Just as the tower was about to fully open, Hu Baiyi's companion inadvertently extinguished the scientist's candle, causing the top of the tower to close once again. It is revealed in this passage that the captain made a deliberate decision not to open the Demon Tower. The reasons for his choice will be further explored. In this scene, a man is confiding in Hu Baiyi about the previous attack by fire bats. Hu Baiyi's friend successfully distracts the bats, allowing the others to flee while he remains in their sight. As everyone moves away, the bats swarm closer to him. He then sacrifices himself by detonating an explosive, resulting in his certain death and the elimination of several firebombs. However, it is evident that some bats still remain. These bats pursue the other individuals, including Hu Baiyi, Yang Ping, and her father, as they seek refuge near a cascading stream. In a moment of urgency, Yang Ping forcefully pushes Hu Baiyi into the water, and she follows suit by jumping in herself. Despite their attempts to seek safety by jumping into the water, their efforts were in vain as they encountered a menacing aquatic creature. Regrettably, Hu Baiyi was the sole survivor, while Yang Ping tragically succumbed to the creature's attack. The scene transitions to Hu Baiyi recuperating in a hospital, where the director of their team, Bureau 749, informs him that all other team members have perished. Overwhelmed with grief upon learning of the loss of his friend, Yang Ping, he becomes reluctant to continue his profession. Consequently, he embarks on a quest to secure a position as a librarian upon his return from this ordeal. Mr. Yang hires him as an employee at his library. They both go to a restaurant for dinner, where Hu Baiyi meets his childhood friend. On the other hand, there is the Bureau 749 team. This means the team that Hu Baiyi used to work for is a member. They discover Yang Ping in an old coffin. But the mysterious fact was this: she remembered nothing about herself. Perhaps she forgot everything because of this accident. On the contrary, it is also shown that Yang Ping's father was also alive. Amazingly, he was found 1,200 miles from the scene. Here, the stage pans down to reveal a destroyed city. This city now looks like no one has ever inhabited it. Because he was attacked by a very strange creature. Renowned scientist Yang can be observed in this image, engaging in a discussion with the team's director. Yang articulates a significant revelation, namely that their actions inadvertently led to the destruction of this city. Specifically, Yang admits to mistakenly unleashing a portal to an alternate world, resulting in the arrival of numerous chaotic creatures and extraterrestrial beings. Determined to rectify the situation, Yang vows to put an end to these unsettling occurrences. Meanwhile, Hu Baiyi, having uncovered information from the library, discovers that a previous scientist had also ventured into the ominous tower, and even authored a book on the subject. This revelation leaves him bewildered, prompting him to embark on a quest to unravel the mystery surrounding the tower. Hu Baiyi's waist starts to feel very hot right away. It feels like there is a fire burning him, just like the kind of fire that used to trap people. Hu Baiyi's friend, whom he saw at the restaurant, tries to put out the fire as soon as he gets there. But instead of letting his friend help, Hu Baiyi pushes him away and doesn't let him put out the fire. Then, he uses his special ability to lift all the things in the room into the air. Just then, the librarian, Mr. Wang, came in. He uses his magic to make everything come back down to the ground and also puts out the fire on Hu Baiyi. Everyone wonders how Hu Baiyi suddenly got so powerful, when before he was just a normal person. Mr. Wang explains that Hu Baiyi gained this power because of the fire bats attacking him. Hu Baiyi immediately experiences an agonizing sensation in his waist, akin to a scorching fire that would typically inflict burns. Observing this, his acquaintance from the restaurant attempts to promptly extinguish the flames. However, Hu Baiyi rebuffs his aide, instead utilizing his own extraordinary abilities to levitate all objects within the vicinity. At that precise moment, Mr. Wang, the librarian, materializes and employs his mystical prowess to restore the objects to their original positions while concurrently dousing the fire, engulfing Hu Baiyi's physique. This perplexes everyone, prompting them to ponder how Hu Baiyi, previously an ordinary individual, had suddenly acquired such formidable powers. Mr. Wang elucidates that Hu Baiyi obtained these powers as a consequence of being attacked by fire bats. The information was unveiled at this location. Why did the scientists bring Hu Baiyi there? Mr. Wang also informs him that a decade ago, when his parents returned all the aliens to their world, some aliens remained hidden and married human beings. As a result, their offspring are a combination of aliens and humans. Meanwhile, scientist Yang is observed having departed with his group, but leaving behind a written note that indicating the direction he went. The director of Team Bureau 749 approaches Hu Baiyi to seek his assistance in finding the scientists. Hu Baiyi expresses his confusion about how to accomplish this task. The director reveals that we encountered Yang Ping a few days ago, and according to her, only Hu Baiyi can locate the scientists. With this revelation, the director departs. Hu Baiyi becomes excited upon hearing about Yang Ping's whereabouts and proceeds to inform Mr. Wang about the situation. Mr. Wang, who needed help finding someone, he told to Hu Baiyi that this person could be found in a tall tower. When Hu Baiyi went to the tower before, he saw that the door had just opened, then many aliens had come out. But now, Hu Baiyi's friend wanted to go with him to find this person. They went to a place called Yang Ping, but Hu Baiyi wasn't happy about it, because the person they were looking for didn't remember anything about their past. This person introduced themselves as Shirley. Then, a student of science came to Yang Ping, and he and some other people went to search for the person they were looking for. Along the way, Hu Baiyi told everyone that he thought this person had a special mission. Eventually, they all took a break and rested. One morning, when everyone woke up early, there was a big storm in the desert where they were. They had to run away to escape from the storm, but some of their group got separated. Some people had heard about a city and went inside it, but a creature attacked and destroyed the city. They were all very surprised and scared by what they saw. Hu Bai's friend also got separated from them. Hu Bai learned about the desert and decided to go on a mission with this knowledge. However, an old man told him not to join their team. He said that as long as they had their animals with them, they would never get lost, because the animals knew the ways of the desert. On the other hand, the rest of the people were also with Hu Bai's friend, who had gotten separated from them. So, this huge, strange monster comes out of nowhere and starts attacking these people, including Hu Bai's friend. And guess what? In the middle of all the chaos, his friend stumbles upon a bike. Another guy and Hu Bai's friend managed to escape from the monster and find Hu Bai. Let me tell you, Hu Bai was beyond thrilled to see his friend. He was scared out of his mind, and couldn't stop crying as he described the terrifying creatures. He even begged everyone to get out of there. But when Hu Bai tried to convince his mission chief to leave, the chief was like, "No way. We can't give up on this mission." He goes on to explain what the main goal of the mission is. He's like, "Our goal isn't just to find scientists. We need to find those creatures that are causing trouble for people." But Hu Bai wants to leave this place. He even asks Yang Ping to go with him, but she refuses. The mission chief asks him, "Why are you running away scared? Don't you remember all the people who were with you on the mountain and they lose their lives?" When Hu Bai hears this, he gets all emotional thinking about them. And to make things even scarier, they start hearing the sounds of creatures while they're talking. So they all get ready, grabbing their weapons. When a monster attacks, they all start shooting at it for a bit, but the problem isn't over yet. Another creature shows up from behind to attack them. They also discharge their firearms at the other monster. However, that creature evaded the bullets and immediately charged ahead. Shirley and Yang Ping were both in pursuit of the monster, with Hu Bai joining them as he ran. Upon entering a room, they were confronted with a chilling sight. The ceiling was adorned with the suspended corpses of humans. In the same room, Hu Bai noticed a sizable pit on the floor. Looking beyond the room, they observed a group of creatures gathering outside, preparing to engage in a confrontation. Hu Bai went into a tunnel that started from that entrance, which took him to a world that the librarian had told him about and asked him to protect. Suddenly, a creature attacked Hu Bai within this world, causing him to fall. Shirley arrived at the scene, and surprisingly, she appeared to have a friendly relationship with the creature, treating it as her pet. Furthermore, the creature reciprocates this behavior with politeness. Shirley places Hu Bai's body into a coffin and uses her supernatural abilities to lift it. Surprisingly, Hu Bai's wounds miraculously healed upon entering the coffin. Now, he finds himself inside the enigmatic demon tower, gradually regaining consciousness. This event mirrors a scene from the beginning of the movie, where glimpses of his past flash before his eyes. One such recollection involves the unfortunate attack on Yang Ping by an unknown creature in the water, leading her to the demon tower. Interestingly, as she reaches the tower, a radiant light emanates from within, revealing a soul. This spirit bewitches Yang Ping, transforming her into the very essence of the soul. It becomes evident that Yang Ping is, in fact, Shirley and not her original self. Furthermore, the Shirley soul emerges from the demon tower, suggesting the possibility of an extraterrestrial presence. In the movie, it was shown that a character named Shirley was causing trouble for people by using creatures. Shirley also attacked the main character, Hu Bai, and his friend with one of these creatures. Hu Bai's friend quickly called him onto the bus, to get away from the creature. However, the creature kept chasing them, and caused a lot of damage to the bus. At the same time, they see a scary tower, called the Demon Tower. Hu Bai was there with Yang Ping, who had been taken over by the alien Shirley. Shirley wanted Hu Bai to open the tower, because he was the only one who could do it. Shirley tells him, "If you open the entrance to this tower, I will return you, Yang Ping." The alien Shirley says that Hu Bai is not convinced about it. When she finds out, she threatens him. "Finish off all members of your team." However, he warned that Hu Bai was not yet caught up in the word. "If you do that, I'll end you." But I couldn't open this tower. When he hears Shirley, he moves to that location. His companions were fighting with the creatures of Shirley. Hu Bai also started fighting those creatures there. But when the creatures come to him, because of this, he dies. Now, Yang Ping appears here, but he is completely under the control of Shirley. She saves Hu Bai from the monsters that came there, and she falls into his lap. Approaching him with his head in his hands, Hu Bai says, "You are looking for a place just like my friend Yang Ping." So he fires the gun at Shirley's soul, and all the scary things that were with her disappeared when she died. The tall tower where the monsters lived also disappeared. Before dying, Shirley tells someone that they were the only ones who could kill her. Then, Shirley's soul left the body of a person named Yang Ping. Yang Ping also died, named Hu Bai shot them. Hu Bai was very sad to see this, but he didn't give up and took Yang Ping to a special place where they could bring people back to life. This place was protected by Mr. Wang. Mr. Wang had told Hu Bai that there was a special coffin that could revive people. So Hu Bai put Yang Ping's body in the coffin to try and bring them back to life. It's also mentioned that Yang Ping's father was a scientist who married an alien, so Yang Ping had some alien genes and could bring things back to life. Her mother prohibited her from reviving a sparrow because Yang Ping's mother had also passed away when she was young. This put Yang Ping at risk of losing her own life prematurely. In order to protect her, her father embarked on a search for a demon tower that held the potential cure for this curse. At the beginning of the movie, it was evident that the people who fell into the snowy ditch had actually perished. However, Yang Ping used her magical powers to rescue and revive them. This ability to resurrect humans was unique to Yang Ping, as no one else possessed such power. Strangely, the coffin used to resurrect others did not have the same effect on Yang Ping. This left her friend Hu Bai with a heavy heart as he had to leave her behind. In the end, it is revealed that the creature responsible for the curse is still alive, even after Hu Bai's departure. This scene serves as the conclusion of the movie. Thanks for watching. The film begins with a bleak vision of an apocalyptic Earth, devastated by a climate change pandemic and war. When Earth became uninhabitable, the ruling elite class fled and settled on Kepler in 2009. 2 generations later, a project called Ulysse was launched to investigate whether it was possible to return to Earth. Unfortunately, the first team to return to Earth was lost soon after landing. At the start of the film, we see a shuttle carrying scientists, known as Ulysses II, which continued the research program after the first one failed. The shuttle has a rocky when it lands in what appears to be the ocean. It begins to sink, but before it completely submerges, the doors are opened, and the researchers swim out, after being pushed around by the waves all night. Blake wakes up on the beach, coughing and spitting out water. She notices her lost mate a short distance away, and crawls towards her, to make sure she is okay, but she discovers that her partner has died at a distance. She notices that the waves have pushed the shuttle out onto the beach as well. She makes her way to it and discovers Tucker unconscious, after waking him up. They talk about how they only have 6 hours before the waves return, so they need to finish their reports before that. Tucker tries to get up, but his leg has been badly injured as a result of the harsh landing, thus, they decide that Blake should conduct the first recon alone. Blake starts walking, taking in the barren landscape. Miles could only see that the wet sandy shore comes into contact with living creatures, which surprises her. Abruptly, the atmosphere becomes hazy, and Tucker cautions Blake about the spike in humidity, indicating a significant environmental shift. Blake, struggling with decreased visibility, instructs Tucker to utilize a flare gun to guide her back to their base. Despite the challenging conditions caused by the thick fog, Blake hastens towards their shelter. Meanwhile, Tucker becomes aware of unfamiliar sounds outside, and senses the presence of an unknown individual. As he prepares another flare gun, a figure cloaked in a robe stealthily enters the shuttle through a different entrance. After firing the flare gun at the intruder, which made contact with his face, the assailant continued to attack Tucker with a spear. Upon reaching their base, Blake discovered that the shuttle had been moved. Perplexed, she followed the trail and observed numerous individuals in the distance. While attempting to get a closer look through her gun's binoculars, she was suddenly overwhelmed by shadowy figures and struck in the head. Upon regaining consciousness, Blake found herself with a bag over her head, and was forced towards a deep well, filled with water. Observing her surroundings, she notices Tucker leaning against the wall, his shoulders visibly bleeding. As the doors open, a rope descends, and Blake emerges from the well to find a group of natives. They escort her to a man with burnt cheeks, a result of Tucker's earlier actions. Realizing the man needs medical attention, Blake attempts to communicate her need for her medical equipment, only to be understood by one native. After providing aid to the injured man, she was returned to the well with a companion by the natives. Blake observes Tucker's weakened state due to blood loss. She becomes enthused to inform him about the existence of a thriving community comprising children. Despite the destruction caused by the natives on their pod, Blake insists on returning to report the situation. Tucker, acknowledging his hindrance in their journey, hands over the device around his neck, and advises her to locate the beamer from the previous Ulysses. This device would enable her to transmit a signal notifying others that Earth is once again habitable. As Tucker's life slips away, Blake experiences a poignant flashback to her childhood. In this recollection, her father, who was a passenger on the inaugural Ulysses mission, stresses the importance of saving the human race. She begs him to remain while she devises a strategy. Suddenly, water begins to rush in, causing the well-being chambers to fill up. She ascends and calls out for assistance. The man she previously aided with burns opens the trapdoor, allowing her to escape. The land appears to be flooded, prompting the natives to use metal rafts to avoid drowning. Once safely aboard the rafts, the natives retrieve Tucker's body, and respectfully send it off, on a smaller raft. Meanwhile, Black is held back from the community and observes, as they gather around a fire. On the other side, she witnesses couples engaging in intimate activities. Her thoughts take her back, to the moment when her father taught her about Earth. He narrated the finding of a potentially momentous breakthrough, assuring her that if it proved true, he would deliver it to her the next morning, leading the indigenous inhabitants to rouse Blake and return her to her proper role in society. As the children attempted to provoke her with water, Blake observed the tools required to send a signal to their base. One of the children, named Mila, appeared to show compassion towards her and dropped the healing spray. Blake sought to enlist the help of the child to retrieve the case. Suddenly, the indigenous people opened the hatch door and lowered young girls, including a baby, into the well. The sound of gunfire echoed in the vicinity. She climbs up to see what has occurred. Blake witnesses a group of intruders raiding their small community. It appears that they take a large number of youngsters, including Mila. After everything was finished, a woman tossed a rope down the well. She then began sprinting around in search of any survivors, but came up empty-handed. They crawled out of the well and glanced around to find the small community destroyed. The village leader, who appears to be the only one who has survived outside, was calling Mila's name and hunting for her. Blake begins to pursue the woman and asks her who those people were. The leader inquires of Blake the reason for her presence, to which Blake responds with a desire to assist. While she elaborates on her intentions, the woman begins to scavenge for sustenance as Blake refills her water container. Suddenly, in the distance, the sound of cries prompts them to investigate. They observe from a concealed vantage point, as the raiders compel their captives onto a large raft in a frantic attempt to rescue a child. The woman brandishes a flare gun in an effort to deter them, prompting Blake to suggest a diversion tactic to facilitate the rescue of the captives. Subduing the woman, Blake takes it upon herself to execute the mission. Stealthily infiltrating the ship, she proceeds to assess the situation. She notices her equipment entangled in a net and moves to retrieve it, only to be surprised as the boat abruptly resumes its journey. Reacting swiftly, she descends into the hold where the passengers are being held captive, and assumes the guise of one of them. After some time at sea, the vessel halts, and the captors begin to transfer the prisoners onto a larger ship, subjecting them to unnecessary roughness. In an effort to avoid drawing attention to herself, Blake keeps her head down. The leader of the group arrives, and carefully inspects each newcomer, selecting a few for further scrutiny by his associates. Maya was among their ranks. The leader then retrieves the weapon discovered in their possession and inquiries about its owner, turning his attention towards Blake. He proceeds to remove her cap. Subsequently, the man escorts Blake upstairs to a secluded area. Upon reaching a specific room, he instructs her to halt and remove her cap. After conducting a search, he grants her entry into the room. Few moments later, a man emerges from the adjoining chamber, displaying excitement upon seeing her. He introduces himself as Gibson and inquires if she has made contact with Kepler. Blake confesses that she has not, due to the damage sustained by the pod. She informs Gibson of her need for the old pod to transmit a signal, but regrettably, he informs her of its destruction. He informed her that, following an extended period of immersion with the indigenous population, and establishing a bond with them, they unexpectedly launched an attack, just as they were preparing to submit their final report. He informed Blake that her father and their colleague had tragically lost their lives in the altercation. Gibson explained that her father had been constructing a dam, with the dual purpose of water containment and hydroelectric power generation. Expressing his satisfaction at her presence, Gibson assigned her a sleeping quarter. Blake drifted off to a recollection of her father in the morning, and upon freshening up and changing attire, Gibson escorted her to a classroom brimming with children. They performed a brief musical performance, and eagerly engaged her in a discussion about the renowned astronomer Kepler. During her exploration of the spacecraft, Blake encounters Gibson's adopted son, who shares a tale reminiscent of her late father's fond reminiscences about trees. Curious about the source of the story, she learns that it originated from a neighbor residing near the engine room. Despite the child's reluctance to lead her there, Blake clandestinely ventures to the engine room, only to discover her father imprisoned. Gibson then appears, admitting to deceiving her and revealing that her father instigated the uprising out of love for a native inhabitant. She pleads with him to open the door for her once she embraces her father. Accusing him of betrayal, she berates him for their ill-fated return, fueling Kepler's anger towards her father. Blake retreats from his room to the balcony. Gibson and Blake engage in a conversation about utilizing the weather transmitter to contact Kepler. Later, Gibson, accompanied by his family and Baker, gathers around the dinner table when news of an intrusion interrupts their meal. To their surprise, it is revealed that Mila's mother attempted to rescue her, but was apprehended and confined to Gibson's private quarters. Blake questions why the education provided is exclusively for girls. He informs her that individuals from Kepler must help repopulate the Earth when they arrive here. He instructs her and Parling to return to the small village in search of the biometer. Blake inquires about the native woman who intervened to save her daughter, only to learn that she was scheduled for execution the next day. This revelation causes Blake to question the validity of their mission. Returning to her cabin, Blake discovers Mila hiding inside. During their conversation, Parling arrives at her door, stating he needs to search the cabin as one of the girls has gone missing. Parling attempts to assault her, but she ultimately thwarts his advances by administering a lethal poison. Together, Mila and Blake scour the ship and locate her mother. Blake releases her and liberates as many prisoners as possible. Blake rushes to rescue her father, after learning that Gibson possesses evidence that could potentially revolutionize reproduction on Earth. Together, they come to the realization that they must prevent Gibson from sharing this information. Despite facing gunfire, Blake and her companions manage to flee the ship and make their way towards the weather transmitter, where Blake takes it upon herself to prevent Gibson from making contact. Blake is on the verge of shooting Gibson when he points a gun at Neil's head, revealing that the child is actually her brother. He threatens to shoot him unless Neil surrenders her weapon. Despite her mother's attempts to intervene, Gibson shoots her and continues to intimidate Blake. Fearing for her brother's safety, Neil reluctantly drops the gun. Mila's mother intervenes to rescue her daughter, leading them back to safety on the boat. The film concludes with the community reunited and out of danger, this bringing closure to the story. Thanks for watching, take care, and bye now. See you in the next video.